Hey there, assessment students. This is Dr. Ryder, or Andy, as I prefer you call me. I decided to provide just a short response to your 1 minute papers from our class way back, it seems, on January 11th. And with your kind of team expectations agreements due this evening, I figured this would be a good time, or as good a time as any, for me to share with you responses to some of the questions that were raised in your 1 minute papers. And the good news is, at least so far, as of that class, the end of that first class on Wednesday, the 11th of January, there weren't too terribly many questions, but maybe some opportunities for me to provide you with some reminders. And I apologize for my voice being a little kind of funny sounding. I've had the flu for the past few days, but seem to be well in the mend, which is a good thing. So let's get right to it. So a couple of you did note that you felt that maybe perhaps the whole project seems a bit overwhelming. And in response to that, I would share with you, I would kind of point you to what I see as two key resources that you have at your disposal in completing the assessment project. And I won't refer to these a ton during the semester, though I probably should refer to them more frequently than I do. But you should probably keep them pretty close at hand as you're working through the course. And those two resources are, and they're provided for you on the left side navigation menu. At least one of them is on the course Blackboard page. The first is the assessment project schedule. And now, of course, it doesn't look like this calendar here. As a matter of fact, that would be kind of a difficult way to display that. But if you look at the course website, the course Blackboard page, you'll see a link to the assessment project schedule in the left side navigation menu. And I did review this in class the first night on the 11th. And what I had said with respect to that was, if you follow along with that schedule and kind of hit those deadlines, things are going to work out okay. You'll at the very least you'll get the project done. And that's more or less true. I mean, that schedule is there, hoping that you will follow it. Most times folks either kind of lose sight of it or, things kind of get a little off track. But it's provided for you as a resource to kind of prompt you to kind of say, to get this entire big thing done, break it down into these little pieces. And this goes back to one of the dispositions that a few of you kind of talked about being pretty good at. Break it down into these little pieces, hitting these specific deadlines or recommended deadlines, and it should be a bit easier to get the whole thing accomplished. So I would encourage you to keep that handy and to work as hard as you can to hit those deadlines. But don't sweat it too much. Don't have a conniption fit if for some reason you find you fall a couple of days behind. It's supposed to kind of give you an approximation or an idea, except of course where there are hard and fast deadlines that are provided for you. The other thing that I think is a good and helpful resource is the assessment plan outline that's provided for you in the course syllabus. And here's just kind of a screenshot of part of that for you. And this just essentially, not only do I tell you what the level 1 and level 2 headings should be, but I try to give you here in the text, more or less a description of what it is that you should be providing within that section of the plan. And for example, and I italicize and I underline things for a reason, and I try not to do it too much. But when I say kind of give a rich, detailed description of the program or other relevant background information, ground your assessment project in context enough so that you can kind of explain or situate the project in either the mission of the office and the work or purpose or function of the office. If it's a program or something that's been kind of in existence for a long time, maybe talk about how it's evolved and what some of the different iterations have looked like. You don't have to go in and do archival research necessarily, kind of digging into the library or into their old files to find out that kind of information. But at certain points in time, if a program or a service, and I think about, perhaps the university apartments, that particular project, those units were built for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. Tell us a little bit about, why, why were they built? Why were they put there? What was the initial vision for those units, those spaces? Um, and then, of course, as things here on campus, with students or with the institutional mission or what have you have changed, how has the use or the purpose of specific programming evolved over time, or what are some of the kind of pressing pressures or functions that have emerged over time for something. So that's kind of what we mean by rich and detailed. Don't just give kind of scant little, you know, piddly information. Do provide some good detail of some information like that. And you'll see some other things, in here too, with words that are italicized or things that are pointed out. Um, so you've got those two resources available for you. The whole project seems overwhelming. So kind of continuing with this, the course really emphasizes, I think, principles and process or processes. If I had been parallel in my nouns there. But principles, we're going to focus on some principles of assessment, digging in this week on the roles of context, outcomes, and theory, and how they come together to form or to shape what you will do within the constraints or confines of the assessment project. You'll learn principles of data collection and specific data collection methods. It won't be exhaustive, but it will give you a bit of a head start. But you might find that there are going to be some other methods or some other strategies for collecting data or using data that already exists that could be helpful or beneficial to your project. We'll look at some techniques for analyzing and presenting data, and making sure that those are in terms of principles, that they are appropriate to the data that you have. Um, Looking at some concepts related to how we use assessment in higher education. Assessment isn't just about grading, or isn't just about giving students feedback on student learning. We use it for lots of different other purposes than simply making those sorts of judgments. And then, politics and assessment, and I differentiate the two, where politics with a capital P is kind of, um, the state government, or someone in the State Department of Education, or an accreditor, or um, someone outside of the university, or perhaps even the institutional leader, and how it relates to them politically. But then the lowercase p politics being kind of sometimes the interoffice or office level politics that people can play with the work of assessment. In terms of process, or processes as it should be, the processes that we're going to talk about, we'll be planning for data collection and how to do that correctly, and how to do that so that it works out as best as it can. And the timeline or the calendar of the semester does tend to present us with some challenges, but we'll be able to get through those, and get some good enough data collected, I'm pretty sure. Um, Aligning assessment design with the assessment purpose. You'll hear me talk again and again about issues of alignment, making sure that things kind of match or they fit together. That's probably one of the most important things in terms of a process related to assessment that I can think of, if nothing else. And then the process for linking your findings, implications, and recommendations that you'll have to come up with, and steps that you might take to manage the assessment process ethically, whether it's with your project or other things that you might do later on. Someone had said, "I hope you will show us multiple examples of previously successful projects." Well, I would offer to you, person who said that, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. No, I'm kidding. Although there really is no elevator to success. You do have to work for it. There are three exemplars that are shared on the course Blackboard page. But as assessment is really very contextualized to the object or the topic of assessment, and where the assessment was done, I would kind of point out to you that those exemplars are only going to be able to get you so far. The other reason is, I think all of them are very good, but none of them are perfect. But you have those there to kind of to take advantage of and to review to see what students did that seemed to work well for them. Um, and it seemed to work well for their projects. So I was particularly pleased with each of those three projects that were there. And I've got a couple of other examples that I can probably put up as well. Um, you know, I, a word of caution on the use of successful projects as examples is oftentimes what we see as examples of success um, can become somewhat imprisoning of our own work in the sense that we can just get so caught up in how we want ours to look like and to be like this example that we have that we think is so good that it really causes a lot of undue stress and anxiety when we're not quite able to make ours fit that particular mold. So just kind of bear that in mind. Um, and here, is the example. So screenshot. If you look at the course Blackboard page, you'll see sample assessment plans and sample presentations. Both folders have. This is an assessment of the culminating project that we use in the master's program here, an assessment plan for the Mikasa mentoring program, and an assessment that was done for engagement guides for the Office of Leadership. So there are three plans. There are three presentations. You can take a look at those, and I think you'll find that those are good, helpful examples for you. Lastly, I asked on the papers, and will continue to do so, how are you feeling about working with your group at this point? And not surprisingly, you know, there's nothing quite like the first time kind of getting together with folks. Everybody tends to feel pretty good, and the overall score was a 4.88 out of the results that I received. So, the group average was 4.88, which is about here. And so, the smiley faces, of course, did not have numbers attached to them. We'll talk about this later on with surveys, but I always assign the higher number to the most positive um, expression or value. So the most positive integer goes with the most positive potential value. So the 5 gets matched with the big broad smiley face, and the 1 is down here with the frowny face. We could also do this in a couple of other ways where, we could center this on 0 and it could be, 1, 2, -1, -2. But I chose to make it a 5-point scale like this. And so it's very easy to see that with a 4.88 average, we can trust that most of the group is right here. I think there was one person who kind of said they were here. So there you have it. I hope that this wasn't too much of an inconvenience for you. But overstayed my spoken word welcome probably. But here you go, and I look forward to seeing you guys in class this coming Wednesday. Thanks.